Good space time, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Citizen Web3 podcast, your source for educational insights into the Web3 universe and your connection hub to discovering those that contribute to building the decentralized world. Today, we are joined by Brad Fuller from NorthTensor Validator. We talk about being dynamic, looking for the next cool thing, and working for money. We discuss how AI minimizes losses, going nuclear, and electricity appetites. Finally, we touch upon decentralized artificial intelligence, hacker culture, and communities. If you enjoy our podcast, please share this episode to your favorite social platform and help us spread Web3 values across the universe.
We need power cheaper. We need access to these GPUs and to make it cheap so that everyone else can go and build what they want on top of this stuff. Work means more than just being rich. That's one of the concerns about Bitcoin, right? Is, consolidated more and more into, people that have access to power. Just because you think there's a way to solve a problem doesn't mean it has to be your solution.
Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Citizen Web3 podcast. Today I have Brad with me from NorthTensor Validator. Brad, hi, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, good to be on.
Glad to have you on, man. I'm actually very excited for this episode. You are the first person from, related to Bittensor that we're going to interview. So yeah, excited. But first thing is first, before I get too excited, can I please ask you to introduce yourself for myself, for the listeners? Tell us everything you want to know about you, maybe a little bit about your background, a little bit about your Web3 story, and anything else you want to put into it.
Sure, sounds good. No, man, that's some pressure on the Bittensor stuff. Hopefully I represent it well. Right? So I've been in crypto for like 10 years now. So most of my background is very, classical crypto, I really care about the proof of work kind of stuff, very much about the innovation, really solving real problems, and all that. I've been tons of background in crypto, haven't built a whole bunch besides just kind of tweaking and, advocating and getting people on-ramped. But about a year and a half ago, I got introduced to the Bittensor project, which kind of aligns exactly with the old classical crypto proof of work, all of that. So I've spent the past year and a half really heads down in Bittensor, just trying to help kind of build the community, help provide good solutions for this really killer opportunity for kind of the merge of crypto proof of work, validation, and AI to take full advantage of what's going on. So we founded NorthTensor. It's a validator for Bittensor. And we're also launching some other projects coming up very soon, this week and next, just around, all the opportunities, around getting people on-ramped into the AI ecosystem.
Nice. I'm going to dig it, of course, if you don't mind me.
Please.
Can I? Yeah. So, first question is first. You've been around long enough. What was the first token you bought? Come on, first shit coin that you bought. I want to know.
Oh, I mean, Bitcoin was the first one, obviously.
Oh, come on. No. Give me something more juicy than that. Bitcoin is boring. Come on, Ethereum is boring. Give me something juicy.
Oh,
something
totally.
Like Devcoin.
Oh, no, it was all about Monero, right? I mean, it was just that, what Bitcoin was supposed to be, right? All about kind of the cypherpunk privacy, more disruption of, the powers that be kind of stuff.
Man, I remember 2014 and Bitcoin talk and when you went to the altcoin thread and you would like just update it every few minutes and they'll be like hundreds of new altcoins coming up, like new pages. It's crazy. But how did you get into crypto? What attracted you to this? Not necessarily industry, because probably when you just came into crypto, I mean, I'm assuming, of course, but you probably weren't working in crypto. So, what attracted you originally to this space?
I've always been kind of that hiker mindset, right? I mean, it's always about trying to find what's new. Always, browsing the internet, reading RSS threads, figuring out kind of where the cool innovation is, and what's next. I mean, it's, back then it was like there was still, fresh kind of innovation everywhere, not just crypto, even websites, right? I mean, it's just like, you want to be signing up for the next cool thing. What's the next Twitter? What's the next whatever else to grab your username, your handle early, and be able to be part of that ecosystem. Oh, it was a lot cooler to sign up for stuff than it is now. So a lot of it's just that, right? I mean, people would talk, they mention the whole, hey, have you heard of this new thing called Bitcoin? And man, it took a lot of technical expertise to be able to figure out how to get it.
Did you straight? I mean, I'm going here from my story here, like, because, for example, for me to actually understand that it was something meaningful took 3 years from originally touching Bitcoin and to actually understand that. Well, at least comprehend it, understanding. What about you? Like, did you jump straight into it, or did you take some time to understand that it actually has some meaning to it?
I mean, it, it was just kind of everyone was learning together, right? I mean, we were all just kind of telling these stories about what it would disrupt, what it would solve. I remember them talking, reading on forums and stuff, people talking about how it easily hit 100K one day. And, that was ridiculous. Like, it was like, there's no freaking way this thing's going to go that high, right? I mean, that's, so it was, I mean, you understood it from a technical perspective, but looking back now, it's like, man, we had no idea how revolutionary it was and how impactful the concepts were going to be. Some people clearly did. I wasn't there, and honestly, I'm still kind of been unlocking, all that stuff.
Let me put you on a spotlight here. Do you still today, after 10 years now, crypto aside, let's just look at Bitcoin for a second. I said I'm going to put you on a spotlight. So, like, do you think that it's still today the community of Bitcoin and Bitcoin in general still stands for the same values and in ethos that it's originally, at least not even described in the white paper maybe, but originally were, going around until 2012, 13 or so?
I need to be careful with that response.
I'm sorry.
No,
You don't have to answer.
It's a
We
good
can
call
skip.
out. No, it's a good call out. I think it's hard to set expectations for where you thought it should be, 10 years ago versus where it is now, right? I mean, one of the main points of tech is it's dynamic, right? It's about solving problems. Just because you think there's a way to solve a problem doesn't mean it has to be your solution, right? I mean, you have to be dynamic. You have to kind of say, hey, I didn't, it didn't go the way I thought it would be, but hey, it's being used this other way in general. Let's open that up. And that's kind of one of the big things that I care about in crypto is, making sure that it's, these projects are open, right? We want to give people the opportunity to go solve things the way they want to solve them and not try and just kind of do a tops down, no, this is my tunnel, this is my project, this is how it should work. It's really just about bringing, new solutions and letting people innovate and create and collaborate with each other to, solve problems that in ways that, I would never think of and, the original founders would never think of, but it really is revolutionary. So Bitcoin specifically, it hasn't followed the direction I want. I think there's a lot of alternatives available that do follow Bitcoin's original vision if you care about that stuff. And, Bitcoin is kind of doing its thing and still, being innovative and disruptive. So I support it.
Absolutely, I agree with a lot of things that touched personally there, like in terms of alternatives, and giving alternatives. It is a bit. I mean, I'm asking that a lot of people lately because I mean, people that the guests, I mean, that come into the interview, and I get all sorts of responses. But I guess one of the things that, like, I don't know, touches deep inside with me, and of course this is biased. We're all humans. Is the fact that over the last 12, 13, 14, 15 years or whatever, we've been around in this industry, well, 15 over exaggerated, but more like 12. It seems like a lot of founders, project founders, like have lost, I'm going to say this, lost balls, and like they're scared of everything, and of course there is some understanding to why that is happening. But this is a question to you. Do you feel that, today, the projects that arise and the founders that are behind these projects, do you feel that it's less like cyberpunky? Do you feel that that there is more laws around it? Do you feel that there is more like bureaucracy around it, people trying to legislate everything, or not? Or is this a bias that is coming from to people who have been in the industry for like 10, 12 years?
I think it's a tough combo. There's a lot of people that are still there that really care about innovating. I think there's a lot of early founders that are super rich now and just kind of doing their own thing. So it's hard to keep them motivated when you kind of transition to a different lifestyle. Um, I think there's a lot of people, just because the space is so much more crowded, there's so much more visibility. I think it's just diverse people that weren't, instilled in this cypherpunk culture and this idea that, we're disrupting stuff, and more of this, oh, I just gotta, I don't think they know any better, right? They went to their MBAs and got their degrees and said, this is how you do it. And they're just following the formula. They don't want to try and create something innovative and disruptive. They don't have that high risk tolerance. So I think crypto's attracted a lot of that. I think one of the main issues what I'm seeing in crypto really is just kind of, you know, this association since 2017 with kind of the bro culture of it's just about meme coins and pump and dumps. Um, and and unfortunately, I see a lot of people in the tech community that are anti-crypto now because they associate it with NFTs and all this stuff. And I'm not against those things, right? I don't think, whatever you want, create it. I think it's all great. But I think a lot of techie people need to recognize that there's a lot more innovation and disruption than just meme coins and NFTs. And I do think we've lost some of that, and I would like to find ways to kind of bring that back and get people to understand that, crypto really is rooted in cypherpunk. It's really rooted in, disruption and creating new solutions. It's not just about pump and dumps and making money as quickly as possible.
Hey, man. I think that, like when you said following the formula, the first thing that springs to mind is I think that, usually the state education system, and this doesn't really matter for it works for each country, unfortunately, it cuts creativity, whether, in crypto, I think in this industry, in the Web3 industry, at least I would like to think that creativity is kind of a driver that's pushing forward this industry. But yeah, I'm gonna, you mentioned memes there, memes, whatever, some people pronounce it differently, but I'm gonna say like a statement that is, I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it, but it's a statement that lately has been more and more I've heard about it, and it comes from a speech on Token 2049. Not that I watched the thing, but there was a couple of speeches that I did watch, and one of the guys, Murad, he said a very interesting sentence in one of his speeches about memes and about the alternative crypto culture, which I'm going to ask you what you think about it since you mentioned it. He said something like this. That the difference between memes and altcoins is quite small. The difference is that memes don't lie to you when they were trying what they're trying to sell you. They sell you belief and hope in hype, and they say this is what we have and this is it. Whether he says altcoins, they do lie to you. They say that they sell you technology when in reality they don't sell you technology. In reality, they try to sell you the token. They are building the technology, but they are not selling it. They're selling the token. And of course, like, it comes the token because it's, not owned by everybody. Comes kind of, we can argue that how it works in the philosophy. But what do you think about that sentence? Do you think that there is and sorry for the listeners, like the recording here is happening, and the reason I'm asking this, not just what Brad said, but also this is 14th of November, and yeah, like the memes are by the looks of it driving the market or whatever. I don't know, not my thing to say. But anyway, sorry, Brad, back to you. Like, what do you think about that?
Just generally on the honesty around meme coins and how it's really, it's the same as anything else, but it's really about a pump and dump. I think it's accurate, right? I mean, I just think there's more to crypto than making money. And yeah, a lot of altcoins really are just trying to sell their tokens. I mean, I look at the space. There's so few good projects out there that are actually innovating. So from that perspective, I think there is a lot of altcoins that really are just, meme coins that are pretending to be, disruptive and innovative, and then meme coins for the sake of meme coins. And again, build whatever you want, right? I mean, I think it all is great, but don't lose the idea that the thing that's even powering these meme coins is insanely innovative, right? I mean, the fact that we can trade, currencies with each other and create stuff that we can trust and is fungible or whatever else is, 10 years ago that was like, crazy, and you need central institutions to be able to manage that. So even with those, it's great. But me personally, I'm just more interested in more interesting problems than, just marketing and, attracting as much liquidity as possible.
I absolutely agree with you. I think the innovation that comes from crypto is definitely not least about money, but the innovation comes first. The money follows the innovation, definitely. But I do want to say that over the years, what I have come to realize, as much as I'm also like really not about the money kind of person, and a lot of the time that fires up in the projects that I do, because we don't care about the market, we don't care about that, we care about the idea. But okay, regardless, but I must say that there is innovation that, for example, something stupid like, and I'm sorry to say that, but in my opinion, I am not a big fan of centralized projects, and but when we look at things like Binance coin or whatever, or Leo coin, whatever, those coins which in essence, overnight kind of gave an opportunity to anybody in the world, doesn't matter of what they do, doesn't matter what their profession, where they live, to own a stake in a multi-billion-dollar company, which gives them the opportunity, for to do whatever they want in whatever they live, which they didn't have before. And that, I think, is quite a powerful instrument. And of course, here it's not about the money. Here it's about the accessibility that crypto creates, I think, and the opportunities it gives.
Oh, totally agree.
Yeah. To back to, of course, to a little bit to Bittensor. And well, first of all, before Bittensor, why proof of work? You mentioned at the beginning, you said that proof of work, is definitely for you the winning consensus algorithm. Why?
I don't know if it's a winning consensus algorithm. I like it. I like, proof of stake. I like all of them, right? They're all awesome. They're all innovative. I like solving all these problems. One of my things of proof of work, though, is just kind of the, it's more, work means more than just being rich and going and saying, I'm just going to lock up these tokens for however many amount of time, right? I mean, it really takes creativity and innovation. That's, I think, one of the main things. Even something as simple as Bitcoin, right? I mean, it's just hashing, and it's, led to this whole industry around ASICs and, real jobs associated with more than just, having value and locking it up somewhere. So I like proof of work because I think it's more than just the electricity costs that drive the value of it. And I think it just brings a better foundational value for whatever cryptocurrency is using it.
What about combined systems which use like proof of work for computation, let's say, or whatever, and then use proof of stake for governance or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I like it all. Bittensor mixes a whole bunch, right? I mean, it's proof of work for depending on the subnets and what you're doing, but it also requires, a proof of stake. It takes a whole bunch of consensus. There's tons and tons of layers on, a different mix, and I think, and I think that's important, right? A mix of being able to contribute and make that decentralized. You can't just have proof of work. If you just have proof of work, then you consolidate towards people that have the real world money and the supply chain to be able to support it, right? I mean, that's one of the concerns about Bitcoin, right? Is consolidated more and more into people that have access to power. Proof of stake on the other extreme is just kind of a who got in early and has all the money, and then they kind of can vote on everything. So yeah, I think it's a mix of everything that's required, and that's what we're seeing. We're helping do with Bittensor and all that is very much just making sure that everyone has a way to contribute.
Since you kind of gave that last I was going to jump to Bittensor here, but one last question, following on what you said. What do you think is then, well, in your opinion, of course, this is, your private opinion. I'm not asking for a solution here, but what do you think then would be a solution to the distribution problem? Because obviously you just mentioned yourself, cons and pros with both, and following, we know that neither proof of work or proof of stake have solved the distribution problem, and it's a big issue. What do you think can help potentially for this industry to make it better?
That's hard. I think you mentioned it somewhat at the beginning about education, right? I mean, it's a lot of it's just getting more people involved and aware and educated on kind of what they need to do and how they contribute to, support stuff. Because I can't speak for all projects. Obviously, there are some that you're going to have, a whole bunch and no one's going to let go. But I think a lot of legitimate projects, people do recognize that, it's a more valuable project when you have, wider distribution, fewer whales and all that. And I think a lot of the, early adopters of those projects, I'll speak for Bittensor specifically, like I see very much a lot of people that have, you know, a lot were in early and have a lot of stake, but they're very generous with kind of sharing it and making sure that people that really want to contribute are able to contribute. And they'll be compensated for that. They'll get a share, either, through staking or through support in registering subnets so they can, start, getting a share of the emissions, or even just contract work, and getting paid directly in TAO for that.
Let's talk about a little bit, about decentralized AI. It's started, not that long ago. At least the hype. Some projects are older, some less older. In my personal opinion, I've mentioned this a couple of times on the podcast previously. There is roughly 3-4 projects that are actually, doing something, like whether what is like Bittensor or Bostrom or I don't know, Cortex, for example. The other ones are all seem to be selling services for AI. The other ones seem to be either selling you computational power in the cloud, or I don't know, GPU power, whatever. What's the deal here with everything being called decentralized AI? Then when there's like 3-4 projects that are actually can be called decentralized AI.
I don't know. It's the same as like open source AI, right? What's the real definition of open source AI or decentralized AI, right? I mean, depending on what you pick and choose for the definition, yeah, it's whatever, it's marketing, right? Whatever sells and whatever you can convince. I don't think we've reached consensus on, what those definitions should be. I think a lot of times it's just lacking context. If you have the knowledge and you say decentralized, they're talking about a very specific aspect that's decentralized. But then it's what are the expectations for what should be decentralized, right? Ideally, everything is, but you have to bite off one piece at a time to be able to get there, right? If you just launched a fully decentralized product and dumped it on the world, you wouldn't get any adoption because it splinter off and kind of disappear into their own things. So I don't have any harsh judgment on any claim of decentralized AI, just as long as we're kind of headed towards that direction. We have a vision for what it should be, and I think that vocabulary will align on over the coming years.
So Bittensor has been mentioned as in several places as not decentralized but federative, right? If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong here.
I trust you if you hear that. It's it's an early project. There's a lot of different ways you could put it, right? I mean, I would call it decentralized because it is, anyone can launch their own project on it. Anyone can kind of build their own solution. But yeah, there is some aspect of it is part of a broader ecosystem that is involved with other subnets and all that.
Can you talk a little bit about the consensus in Bittensor? It would be quite interesting, I think, to hear, like from your perspective, of course, how you see it, how it works, what's special about it, or Bittensor in general, if you want.
Yeah. So the main thing about Bittensor, the main thing about kind of OpenTensor Foundation and the founders is, it's very much market driven, right? I mean, I think the vision for pretty much all of us that are in it is we care about making it a free market, with the good and bad that comes with that stuff. So a lot of what we're trying to build is, how do we enable people to provide their own solutions for AI just on top of this chain, this new layer one, that incentivizes people to solve problems the way they want. And if you want to collaborate with other subnets and with the broader ecosystem, you can. Whether if you want to do your own thing and come up with your own incentive mechanism, that's fine. So when it comes to consensus, it's a hard one because, I mean, there's the broad consensus of, just Bittensor, but it's just, substrate wallet kind of driven distribution with the 21 million tau over the course, similar to the Bitcoin emission schedule. But the main innovation is you have these subnets, which are just essentially, side chains that you can launch, and with it, you can build your own consensus mechanism, right? Yuma consensus was kind of the main thing of being able to not have like a Bitcoin hash, one winner takes all kind of thing, but more of an AI driven, this is my judgment. We're minimizing loss, right? What's the loss function that's best performing? And then rank those responses from the miners across the consensus. So the consensus is, a bit looser because with AI, it's not about an absolute right answer. It's about one that's, minimizing the loss. So a lot of the subnets, follow that, right? I mean, we're building subnets to be able to go and solve for specific, problem like image generation, right? You can have a bunch of miners that are all, providing solutions to image prompts. You can't go say this one miner got it right, he wins all the pot. It's really about comparing the results of that and compute and determining which ones are actually striving to provide the best response and which ones aren't, and then ranking and distributing for that. So but for consensus mechanism, it just depends on the individual subnet, right? There's 54 I think today, aiming to add 1,000, over 1,000. So it's, we really just want to kind of allow people to build whatever AI apps they want on top of Bittensor.
What kind of like some of the interest you mentioned that subnets can have different consensuses? Is there any subnets that have something that stands out like out of the blue, like out of everybody else?
I don't know one off the top of my head because there's so many that we're juggling. I mean, running as a validator, right? That means that we're running, 54 different people's software. Thankfully, they introduced child hockey staking so that we can go and split the work with each other. But the software requirements are pretty heavy, and pretty unique depending on each individual one. And then they're independently being updated. So I don't have one off the top of my head that I'd say this is super unique. Because it's really just about kind of solving for X, whatever problem they're solving for on the subnet.
What about in terms of problems? Do you remember any subnets like coming up with some problems that stood out for you, like something outside of like normal text generation, or I don't know, image generation? Something was like, "Ooh, that's interesting."
I would suggest you look through them because, like I said, there's 54 of them. There's a ton of really cool ones that have varying degrees of like. I think it's AI. It's all interesting, right? Even just the basic chat prompting is awesome. There's one that I've been working with. Make sure I name the number right. One sec. Yeah, man, there's so many. Right. I mean, we have like compute horde that's like, decentralized compute, which is really just this, takes a facilitator, you can go and have it do tasks and it distributes across, what they're aiming for is, tons of GPUs that's all coordinated through, their own subnet. That's distributed out to validators distribute out further to miners. The miners go and solve the problem however they want, and then we rank, how they solve the problem. It opens up miners to be able to solve problems the way they want, as long as it's solving the problem. That's all that matters, right? You have, same with, prediction markets, right? Betting, or even the stock market and stuff. Same kind of thing, right? The idea that we can have, I mean, we were talking to one and they're saying they have, connections with some miners that have, sports betting that's, some of the best, prediction on how these teams are going to be able to perform. And with Bittensor, you don't need to reveal your algorithm, right? You don't need to go and say, open up exactly how you do it and kind of give away your secret sauce. You just need to prove that you can do it. And then you're rewarded for that.
Let me jump a little bit to the validator side. I'll come back to the AI because this is actually interesting. We have I believe quite a lot of validator listeners, and we interview a lot of validators. And this is interesting because, as far as I understand, the validating on Tau works a bit different, right, from what normal validation. Am I correct, or can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. So the way the validating works, again, it's every subnet has their own consensus mechanism. They have their own code base that they use to go, define what the miners should be doing. So every subnet is going to be, slightly different validation requirement. So they range anywhere from, I can run it on a little VPS that's just going and sending out, for example, queries of what's the stock price going to be of this equity tomorrow, right? Let the miners kind of provide their response. I store it. I wait a day. I check it, against how close it was based on all the miners' responses and say, hey, these miners were really close. These miners were really far off. I reward them for, how close they were and kind of distribute, you know, my share of emission to Tau based on the results of that. Also could be, you know, we're working on a data refinement subnet right now where it's the miners go and have to take, from find web common crawl and be able to go and collect a collection of data sets to provide. Me as a validator, I'm going to have to run a, GPU validator to go and train an LLM based on the responses of these data sets and confirm that the data set is actually aligned with, the responses and the structure that all the other miners are providing. And if the miner is trying to cheat and say, take a shortcut, make something up so that they can save costs, then we're able to rank that and say they're not actually, performing the mechanism, the consensus that we're trying to aim for.
Considering though, every subnet has different like algorithm and different requirements. How do you like what's there is like I'm assuming there is no typical type of node, right? All nodes are different. So is it more like the validator community runs the machines bare metal, self-hosted? Is it cloud? Like what's the setups like in Bittensor?
Everything, all and everything, right? I use Ansible personally for the deployments, and then we're hosted, all over the place. VPSs, bare metal, right? Locally, just kind of whatever's cheapest, right? It's all about optimizing the costs to be able to get the work done.
Is there a self-hosted culture in Bittensor? Curious, like out of data
Definitely.
centers.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
There's, we've been working with one validator that's helping support us on a lot, Roundtable 21. They're, investing quite a bit in their own infrastructure.
Nice. And does it because there is a lot of arguments, a lot of chains. I mean, that it's not profitable, but I'm curious. Well, is there any already like? Of course, if you say it's only one, maybe it's still early days. But curious to understand, like a lot of people. I mean, we personally are a self-hosted validator, and you do it because of values. But at one point, you understand the amount of money you invested into the setups, and you're like, "Wow, that's a lot of money." So I'm curious, what is the one-on-one on that?
On profitability,
Yeah.
It's a mix, right? Sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do, and we really want to kind of see this succeed. And I think, it's like all tech, right? It's expensive at first. You invest in, you take the risk, you bring it on, and I think it's just going to get cheaper. It's going to get easier. It's going to get more competitive to, you know, stay relevant. But things smooth out, right? Right now, it's spikes up and down. It's I'm doing great versus I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm losing my shirt on this. But I think it'll even out, especially with how big AI's gotten. It's kind of the perfect opportunity right now to do this kind of stuff, right? Because you have a lot of people that knew AI, they know machine learning, they understand kind of how these problems are solved, but it's been very focused towards research institutions. Now it's mass market, right? Everyone wants to get into it. It's the next big thing. You have corporations, their capital expenditures are insane, how much they're spending just to stay relevant on the bleeding edge. The way I look at it is all of that last gen stuff, all these H100s that even a year and a half ago, people were panicking, trying to get their hold on, they're suddenly like, oh, we don't want them anymore, right? It's throw them out, they're worthless kind of stuff. All those H100s are going to need a new home, and that's a perfect chance, for the rest of the community to go and actually train their own foundation models, and their own solutions. And really, I see that as really kind of the where we're going to see an inflection point around broad adoption, is allowing individuals to go build their own solutions and integrate tons of stuff. And I see Bittensor really being able to support that, and unify people, to bring real solutions.
Let me a small devil's advocate remark on the electricity. So and AI, of course, electricity and AI. So the big question is, where's the electricity going to come from? I mean, a lot of people argue that if you look at what Meta and the other corporations are building, the size of the warehouses, what's going to power them? And I mean, considering that I don't care about Facebook and stuff, but we care about our industry, and obviously it's growing as well. And obviously, if their appetite is growing, it's probably going to go down to retail. Retail appetite is growing in terms of computational power. So end of the day, we still, coming back to the electricity question. So what's going to power up all that?
Hopefully nuclear or
Yes.
something that's right.
No. I was hoping you're gonna say that, because people are afraid to say that. I don't know why, especially in Europe, people are scared of that. I don't know why. I don't understand why, but yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, I mean that's it, and I think it's great, right? I mean, this is what we need. There's you look at graphs about power and innovation and quality of life, and it's just like, if we can just kind of do a step function up on the amount of power, it really allows people to, I believe in the power of people, right? I mean, we need to get away from all these corporations, being able to do whatever they want because they have, big pocketbooks, and they're taking, all of the index fund investments and sucking it all up so they can continue to attract the top talent, while everyone else is left behind. We need power cheaper. We need access to these GPUs and to make it cheap so that everyone else can go, and build what they want on top of this stuff.
Yeah, hopefully the trend will carry on. It's not an easy trend though, like all this. A lot of people, for some reason, are afraid, of building, hosting, and I don't know. They try to delegate it, and that is sad to see. But back to the models and bias kind of things. Something I wanted to ask you. So I don't know if I'm gonna try to make a question out of this, right? Wait, I'm gonna say a little intro, and then I'm gonna try to make a question out of it. So the way I see it, and again, this is a personal opinion, of course. One of the sort of golden grails or holy grails, whatever, of artificial intelligence, or decentralized artificial intelligence, shall I say, is actually the open sourcing, the learning, the teaching of the model, opening the complete black box. And it's something that I haven't seen a lot of. Like, people are afraid to go down to the consensus level, and to sort of actually use a decentralized consensus to teach an AI model, which in a sense would return a decentralized AI model. Why do you think people prefer to rely on models built by other people to do their tasks rather than trying and build their own models? Is it a lack of tooling or anything else?
It's cost right now, right? I mean, it's you look at foundation model cost training, and it's crazy. I mean, you have startups, raise, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they failed at it because it's just too expensive. But back to my point, I think it's just going to get cheaper, right? I mean, as long as we're throwing money at this and we're innovating, and there's a lot of incentive to solve this problem, the cost is only going to go down, and we're going to be able to solve, more interesting problems, the further we go.
Do you really foresee people in, I don't know, let's 5, 10, whatever years time, being able to build their own models at home and actually doing that, not just being able, but actually doing it?
100%. I mean, we're already seeing people try that, right? That's the rich people hacker culture kind of thing, right? It's going to get, especially with Bittensor and being able to use, this decentralized compute for inference and all that. It is, I mean, I would say, as long as we do rights right, as long as we have access to data and we don't allow these big corporations to build moats and make data deals, so they're the only ones that have access to data sets. They're the only ones that have access to training and legislation that restricts AI. As long as we can prevent that stuff, I mean, the text there, it's open. People can build their own custom models that are specifically around their use case. There's so much power to that. Literally, just in the LLMs. That's not even considering all the other um, ML applications that we can have for just our personal lives.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the thing is, I what pushed me a little bit back was I was at an event, and I don't go to events very often. I really don't. But this was probably the first event in like some years that I visited, a big event, which was in Berlin in about half a year ago. And there was a conference, sorry, a side event or whatever that I went to, which was about decentralized AI, and it was full of developers, and I don't remember the project, and even if I would, I probably wouldn't say it right now, just not to point fingers, but um it wasn't a big project. It was more or less a small project, but there was a lot of people there, and most of the people at that side event were not just passers by. They you when you spoke to them, they were they were developers. They're smart developers. There were a lot of DevOps people there, a lot of people who are interested in developing AI. But as soon as I tried to speak to any of them, like in a one-on-one conversation on sort of what is the centralized AI for them, and most of them were they were literally just talking about launching LLMs built by somebody else in the cloud, and this was the centralized AI for them. And as soon as I would go down to trying to talk about building models, consensus, and so on and so forth, all of them were pushed back. So I kind of like I'm with you on what you say. It's just when you say that you think it's going to happen in 5 years, I'm like what I've seen so far kind of pushes me back. But I hope you're right. I definitely hope you're right, and that's what happens. Yeah, go on, please.
Yeah, it's all about education, right? I mean, we need people exposed. We need people understanding how they can do it, because it's really not that hard, right? I mean, you kind of hop on some of these trainings from people, and the hard stuff has been solved by these researchers, right? The libraries are incredible now. It really is accessible to be able to do this. The main blocker is energy and compute, and I hope that we'll continue to invest in it. I know that we're spending tons of money and power on it, but this is what it takes. Corporations, let them take all that risk on, spend all that money, because as soon as they do, it'll build a whole supply chain to be able to support this, and it's going to benefit all of us individually. I think generally you see, especially early on, right? I mean, a lot of people don't quite comprehend it, and a lot of it, I mean, again, not to accuse anyone, but there's a lot of VC funding in crypto now, and so a lot of these people you talk to, it's just their head really is just kind of how quickly can get to profit. And for them, it's oh yeah, we want to own the LLM, and the VC will have these incentives to say, you know we want to keep stuff locked up. We want to have the right Star Foundation model. We want to turn Web3 into essentially AWS, except for anyone can access it using a blockchain wallet. But otherwise, we're still the owners of the whole infrastructure, and we can charge on top of all of those transactions. But I don't think it's going to survive, right? I mean, there's too much benefit to AI, and there's too much attention on it that you're gonna have innovators. I mean, you're seeing it in OpenAI, right? I mean, you have all these people that you know founded it and created this, now kind of branching off and doing their own thing. You're only going to kind of see those branches further.
I only hope you're right. I mean, I do see some signs to that, and more people using programs like image creators, and are actually prompting without understanding that prompting is actually kind of far away coding. So it's cool to see people get into it like that, and sort of slowly kind of go down level to actually touching LLM itself, and on that level. But please go on and retort, please, Brad. Sorry, retort if you wish to retort.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, that's and I think that is what powers innovation, right? I mean, I look at the IoT space and how much opportunity there was in there, and I think it's just dead. because corporations strangled it, right? I mean, they had this vision of, we're going to own everything. We're going to keep all these rights and have all these patents and stuff, and then expect all the broad market to accept it and adopt it. And it didn't work because you didn't have that hacker culture to be able to go innovate and create stuff that actually is solving problems they want it solved. And then typically corporate goes and copies that and polishes it and then sells it, right? You can't change to flip that model. And I think it's the same with AI, right? Right now, corporate thinks, they can go and have a polished model and be able to sell it and bring it to market immediately. You need to go through that phase of all these hackers going and building, and making rough edges and innovating and coming up with the solutions they want. And then you kind of get the really broad, polished stuff that corporate's good at. I'm hopeful for AI, right? It's, like you mentioned, the image generation, right? There's such a strong culture around people, just even the LLMs, right? Culture of just people running it locally and figuring out how they can go, break stuff and build things the way they want. So I'm personally hopeful.
It's really like interesting that what you say can be easily backed up, just like from a podcast. My podcast interviews. I've spoken to several fellas over the last 4 years, which have been at least like 2 or 3 people, I believe, that were really, at the working in the founding of the internet. And I mean the modern internet. I'm not talking about the 67s, 70s. I'm talking about 80s. And like they are saying exactly the same stuff. Their story that already happened is exactly what you describe right now. So, of that culture being born, and actually changing things and pushing innovation forward. Brad, really quickly, like to kind of like start wrapping things up. I didn't ask you about NorthTensor and where does it all come in into what is the vision of NorthTensor as a validator? What do you guys do? What is the goal? Like where is it going for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it aligns with a lot of what I've been talking about. We really just care about accessibility. We want to bring people into the Bittensor ecosystem. We want to, bring innovation. Like I talked about, Bittensor is really cool. It's a novel L1. You build your own consensus on your subnets. It's there's tons and tons of opportunity and creativity. So yeah, reach out if you're interested in kind of, collaborating or have ideas or stuff. I'm more happy to, help sponsor and support and be able to get stuff built. We're close to launching our new website, Bittensor AI. Our hope for that again is, make it easy for people. There's a really broad audience that's accessible, right? We don't want to just have this Bittensor be narrowed to just people that are in AI and know specifically how to design these models. There's a lot more people that I think need to be involved, and we want to kind of help them figure out how they can be involved and help them ramp, whether it's even just, someone that wants to buy and stake, right? Happy to help facilitate that. Someone that wants to help market, tons of opportunity for that. There's just so much out there. So yeah, we'll be launching our Bittensor AI site so they can create an account and kind of understand the Bittensor ecosystem more. And our hope is it'll be, more of a community hub. And I'm personally spending, a lot of resources to just, make sure it's successful, Bittensor broadly, and our projects.
Actually, let me go like one kind of last question here before I jump into a Blitz, because it's kind of like it asks to be asked here, about the community, because this is like one of, well, I personally think for validators it's one of the most difficult topics, and again, talking from validators to for years and years now, I kind of feel from, doesn't matter which ecosystem validators come from, one of the biggest pain is always building community. What has been the experience like in Bittensor? Because you mentioned a lot of things right now which are community building, of course, but what has the experience been like?
I think probably the same as everyone, right? I mean, it's hard. It's it's hard to attract people. It's hard to, especially again in the ecosystem today, right? There's so much emphasis on kind of people are drawn to centralization. They're drawn to power. So trying to attract people that are drawn to power to something that may not be so tops down, kind of a, hey, we're gonna control everything kind of thing, it is hard in this space again. And I think a lot of that's ever since kind of meme coin frenzy and this idea of I just want to attach my wagon to someone else and ride with them. into success. But I think there's a lot of people. I know there's a lot of people in the Bittensor ecosystem that are really, striving to kind of make sure it's distributed and decentralized, right? There's a lot of initiatives, from Miners Union, Roundtable 21. There's really good teams out there working to, make sure that we're all kind of being successful.
Nice. I'm gonna jump into the Blitz. Well, I call it Blitz. You don't have to answer without thinking. You can answer. Give me long answers as well. It's up to you. So those are the questions are not crypto related. This is gonna to take us out the conversation to finish this off. So here they go. They're a bit weird, but I warned you. So here's the first one. Give me either a book or a movie or a song that have a positive influence on Brad throughout his life.
Oh man, that's probably book. Chaos Theory by James Glick. That's one that
Nice.
I was just thinking recently. That's kind of changed. I read that when I was, I think, in elementary school, and that's just one of those books that have stuck with me, just in the back of your head on how you think about the world and how it works.
Awesome. Live. I love it. To everybody who's listening, by the way, check out the show notes. So everything me and Brad mentioned, there's a link there, and you can find the books and the projects and everything else, the websites. Second question. They're gonna get weirder. Give me one motivational thing that you would like, that you can share, of course, that keeps you, getting out of bed every day and building for the sake of curiosity and innovation, and not looking on the kind of, say, the evil side in brackets and quotations. Sorry, something motivational, something that keeps you going every day.
It's all about beauty, right? Whatever you can do to make the world more beautiful. So that's what keeps me going, is beautiful solutions to hard, ugly problems.
Amen. Amen to that. Amen to that. Amen to the blocks. And one last one. This one is going to be the weirdest one. It always is. Dead or alive, real or not real, made up, doesn't matter. Could be like, a cartoon character, could be a character out of a book, historical character, could be somebody you know personally, doesn't matter, a writer, a coder, family member, not a guru, because I don't believe in gurus personally, and it's not a positive thing in my opinion, but a character, personage that, when you're kind of feeling down and stuck in your life, you kind of think about that personage, and it somewhere helps you to move on forward.
That's a hard one. I don't know. I'm similar to you, right? I mean, I just kind of do my own thing. That's
I understand.
yeah.
I
I can't think of anyone that's just like
I get you.
I've got no heroes.
I get you. You're the first person to in a lot of years to say that, by the way. Seriously, but nobody has said no one. Yeah, nobody has said no one. Nobody has said that. Interesting. Really, really interesting. No, it is, man. Like seriously, it's interesting point. I think nobody has not said that. Brad,
hope it doesn't make me sound cocky or self-centered. I'm not at all.
The opposite. no. I think it's the opposite. I think it's shows that it's like the question of what's your favorite color, and then people go like blue, red, and then if you answer like, well, I don't have one, they're like kind of like, what do you mean you don't have a favorite color? Well, I don't have a favorite color. It's like as simple as that.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Okay. And on that note, Brad, this is just a goodbye for the listeners. Please don't hang up just yet. For the listeners, thank you for tuning in. And Brad, thank you for finding the time and joining us. Thanks.
Yeah, been a blast.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
This content was created by the Citizen Web3 Validator. If you enjoyed it, please support us by delegating on citizenweb3.com/staking and help us create more educational content.